conversation with the International President General of the Society of Saint Vincent De Paul this morning on For the Record. Good morning, I'm Neil Heinen. St. Vinny's is an instantly recognizable image for most Madisonians, if not most Americans. It is an indispensable piece of the human justice and security infrastructure in our community, but it is in fact so much more. This past week, members of the Society of Saint Vincent De Paul from all over the United States gathered here in Madison for their National Assembly. The gathering is significant for a number of reasons, not the least being the 200th anniversary of the founding of the Society, but also for the presence of the international president, Dr. Michael Theo. Dr. Theo is from Singapore and thus the first non-European to head the Society, although he works out of the international headquarters in Paris. We will talk about the work of the Society of Saint Vincent De Paul with Dr. Theo and with Ralph Middlecamp, Executive Director of the Society of Saint Vincent De Paul of Madison. And thank you both very much for joining me this morning.
Thank you for
Dr. Theo, welcome to Madison.
Thank you, Neil. I'm glad to be here.
Perhaps we could start, just for those who are not familiar with the Society of Saint Vincent De Paul, describe the Society now as a global organization of 200 years.
The Society of Saint Vincent De Paul was founded 180 years ago by Blessed Frederick Ozanam, who is the principal founder, along with 6 other companions. They started with one conference with 7 members, and through the grace of God, today the Society is present in 149 countries worldwide with over 800,000 members, 1.3 million volunteers, and we are assisting over 30 million poor. Thanks. Praise to God for that.
Describe the breadth of the work of the Society.
The traditional work of the Society usually is to feed the hungry and give them accommodation. But over the years, this has evolved into looking at serving the poor in practically every aspect of poverty and need. What the Society is looking into now is that we have participated practically in all the natural disasters in the world. As you know, over the last few years, there were so many disasters, and the Society is there at the emergency phase from the very beginning. And what is more important is the post-disaster period, where we have to rehabilitate the people who are affected into society again, and we rebuild houses, and we try to look at the needs of the children, particularly in education, and it's how we are involved. Yeah. And one more very important aspect is we are now looking at assisting the poor and needy in what we call systemic change. Change the way the poor is living. Get them out of the poverty cycle. Make them independent. When you do that, the bottom line is you restore to the poor the dignity of the human person. Yeah. They can lead a better life, a better hope for the future and for their family. That is key to the Society now throughout the world.
Ralph, and if we can just now to sort of make this real for the people who live
Sure.
here. You know, I mentioned the image of St. Vinny's. We talk about it all the time. It's part of the fabric of life here. But help us understand how this is a reflection of the values of the Society.
Sure. It is this worldwide organization that members roll up their sleeves wherever they're living and figure out what needs to be done in that community. And that's what we've done here in Madison. One of the beauties of the Society was the saying of the founder that there's no work of charity foreign to the Society. And so it has allowed us to in Madison, figure out what those needs are. And most recently, opening a pharmacy, you know, one of 5 in the country. But other places do other things as there is need. One of the beauties of having a worldwide organization, I think, is we're connected to an effort. Michael on the way here was telling me the newest conferences that we're forming, believe it or not, is in Mongolia. And one of the things I like about our society is it's not the U.S. and other wealthy countries sending money out. It's people just like me and you doing in their country what we do in ours. And so we are where the poor are. A lot of times when I talk to new Vincentians, I'll ask them, where do you think we're the strongest or most member? And the answer is, Michael, you were just there.
Yeah.
Brazil.
Brazil.
So the second where we have the most members, you were there too, is India. So this isn't some relief agency. It's people, as our saying locally that you may have heard, is helping our neighbors in need. And that's what we try doing here with food pantries, with housing, with pharmacy, making home visits, and giving stuff right out of our stores. And Madison is very generous to helping us do that.
What's the size of the Madison Society, Rob?
Here in Dane County alone, we have 17 conferences throughout the general area. There's another 33. Charity-wise, here in Madison, we'll give away about, just flat out giving away, helping about $2 million worth of assistance to people right here in Dane County.
Yeah. So talk about the significance of having the National Assembly here.
Couple of things that is for us, it's a challenge. We're kind of a small city to host the 600 some people that are coming here, but they wanted to see the work we do. We're probably one of the top 10 localities in the country in terms of our organization and what we're doing. So people wanted to come see this. It's also an organization that, besides doing the work, it values both the faith part of it, that people come and, but also friendship. And so over the years, working with the poor can be burnout work. And sometimes you wonder why you're doing it. The success for us would be going out of business. but if you have other people doing it and your friends, and you understand that that's part of being a Christian, being a human being, to do this sort of charity, that's what motivates you and keeping you going. So it was delightful for me last night, sitting in the lobby after all the work, to see person after person coming in from Texas and Portland, and these are people I've seen before, and they're doing the same work in their towns, and we can compare notes.
Sure. Now, I want to make clear that we're taping this show on Wednesday, so when people are watching it on Sunday, the assembly hasn't begun yet, but maybe, Michael, you could talk about what will your message be to the delegates to the assembly?
As like all my messages to my members, that as a growing society, we have to keep our faith dimension, because the Society of Saint Vincent De Paul is actually founded by 7 people grounded in our faith dimension of the gospel values of faith, hope, charity, and love. I always remind them that as Vincentians, we need to maintain our 5 Vincentian values, which are humility, simplicity, meekness, holiness, and passion. This is particularly clear now when I had the opportunity to meet with Pope Francis in June this year, because I'm also a member of the Pontifical Council Co Unum, which is one of the advisory councils to the Holy Father. I was appointed there by Emeritus Pope Benedict XVI from 2010 to 2015. My impression of our dear Holy Father is simply this, that he has the intellect and wisdom of a Jesuit, because he's a Jesuit, but he has the humility and the simplicity of a Franciscan. That's why he took the name Francis, and a Vincentian, because in my mind, he has all the 5 Vincentian values. And he even told me that, he said, Michael, I know the society very well. When he was Archbishop of Buenos Aires in Argentina, he visits the poor in the slums with the society members. So he say, remember your 5 Vincentian values, remember.
We're going to talk more about the assembly and the role of the Saint Vincent De Paul Society in the global world right after this. We're back. I am with Ralph Middlecamp, the Executive Director of the Society of Saint Vincent De Paul of Madison, and we are joined by the International President of the Society of Saint Vincent De Paul, Dr. Michael Theo, here for the National Assembly, which is being held in Madison, with some 600 members of the Society gathered over this past few days. for their National Assembly. And I want to return, Michael, to something you mentioned in the first segment, this idea of a focus now on systemic change. Talk a little bit more about what that means.
Just to give you some idea of what systemic change is, I mentioned that we want to make the poor independent. So there are processes and programs. And one of the main programs that we are focusing on is on microfinancing. We will give them seed money to start a small business. Not only do we give them the funds, we also provide them with the training and with the people to guide them through, particularly the first year. And when the business grows, usually it's a family business. And when it grows and they need more people, and we always tell them, you have to enlist and engage and employ another poor. So this will ensure that there is proper wage being paid to an employee. So we do not create any injustice in the wage level. The other part of the systemic change is that we have projects, particularly in third world countries, in Africa, India, what we call goats bank and cow bank. We give a pair of goats or a pair of cows to a family, and then they will milk the cow, put them in a bottle and sell them in the marketplace. Yeah. So they do sell and earn a living. They do not have to beg. And then we invest heavily now in education of the young people. Education is key, and when they can make it even to the college level, we will finance them even up to university and polytechnic level.
Yeah.
And we have got great success in this area, and it's a great tribute to the people who are involved in this systemic change.
And it would not be wrong, Ralph, to say that systemic change that underlies a lot of the work of the local society as well.
Right, and we're more and more focused. We're certainly a safety net organization.
Right.
And at some point, someone can't get a job if there's not food at home, if they don't have a place to live. And more we're wanting to be aware that, like I mentioned earlier, success is going out of business, which we know won't happen, but to do some value added. So one of the successful programs we have, for example, here in Madison, we help people with some utility bills, a very small group that has been pre-screened for success. But one of the things we've been able to do with some of them is not just help them with the utility bill, but we bring in someone from the University of Wisconsin once every month to help them with budgeting. The whole process of we'll help you, some with actual dollars maybe, to not have the lights shut off, but you really got to look at your budget here and what can you do. So those sort of things more and more we want to integrate. Same thing with the pharmacy we opened, in great collaboration with the UW Pharmacy School. It's for people with no other options, very low income, but we want to also look at the overall health of the people. If we give them some of their prescriptions free, maybe we need to enroll them in a smoking cessation class, which we're looking at running. Maybe we need to look at their diabetes, diet, and other things that you certainly and your wife have been aware of, the healthy eating patterns of folks. Maybe if we're helping them with blood pressure and diabetes, part of what they need to do back is to take some classes or to work with people we're going to bring in to look at their own self-improvement.
And maybe we should be really clear, this is not a full-service pharmacy with every drug you can think of in there. It is specifically geared towards these sort of really important health issues.
Right. We're very limited in what we can do. It's people with no other option, high blood pressure, diabetes, some mental health, no narcotics, and generics as much as possible. And so it's very limited. But for some of the poorest of the poor, with no other options.
Yeah. Michael, you correctly pointed out that it's actually the 180th anniversary of the society, but the 200th anniversary of the birth of the founder of the society, which suggests he was a young man when he founded the society. Frederick Ozana was 20, and it's my understanding that influences the society in terms of the role of young people.
This is true, Neil. In the world now, although we have 800,000 members, but now a quarter of them are youth. And they have special programs in schools, in colleges. And when they grow to be young adults, then they join the conference as members. You mentioned that Frederick started the society with 6 of his companions, and he was only at the tender age of 20 years old when he was a student at Sorbonne University in Paris. he became a professor of law. But as God's will, he only lived for another 20 years. And he suffered, he had diseases, and at the age of 40 years old, he returned to the Lord. But since then, his legacy has continued.
Yeah.
And we have focused now in all the countries in the world that we are in is to encourage with programs for more young people to join the society. So we welcome all the young people. You have a future in the society. The poor has a future in you, and you have the ability and the talents given to you by the Lord to serve in the society, to serve Christ in the poor.
I like the fact that whenever I bring my Edgewood College class,
it's fun.
either
It's fun
you or Ernie Stettenfeld are always quick to point out the youth of the founder. Yeah.
It's an important part. And here at the University of Wisconsin, we had one of the oldest chapters in the country, actually the first one on a non-Catholic university in the 1930s. The other thing at the meeting we had this week was we are bringing young people in, and one of the very exciting things, we got a call the last minute from the Twin Cities where the executive director up there says, I've got 30 Burmese young high school students that are forming a Saint Vincent de Paul conference. Can they come to Madison?
Interesting.
And they're coming. They're going to be here on Friday.
Oh, that's great.
And so the multicultural aspect is precious, but the energy that they bring when they come is it reminds us all that that we can do more and be more enthusiastic about the work we have.
We're going to take our last break, and then we will talk about the future of the Society of Saint Vincent de Paul right after this. We are honored to have in Madison this week the international president of the Society of Saint Vincent de Paul, Dr. Michael Thiel. He is here from Paris for the National Assembly, which was held over the last 4 days here in Madison, and I am also joined by Ralph Middlecamp, the executive director of the Society of Saint Vincent de Paul here in Madison. Dr. Thiel, what is the future of Saint Vincent de Paul?
Poverty will always be around the world. You can never eradicate poverty. I mentioned earlier on that we are in 149 countries worldwide. Out of that, only 22 countries are affluent. There's 127 third world countries. What we are doing now is, apart from assisting the poor, there's also those people who are vulnerable, people who are needy, but not necessarily the poor. So we have been accredited by the United Nations as a member of the UN ECOSOC, Economic and Social Council, last year. So basically that gives us a seat in the UN in New York. We will embark on a program together with the Vincentian Fathers, who are known as the Congregation of the Mission, and the Daughters of Charity, who also has the same status as us in ECOSOC in the UN, to speak up as one voice for the poor, for human rights, for social rights, and for rights to ensure that children are not abused in many parts of the world. So that's our next era into being the voice of the poor. At the same time, there are many countries we need to go to, and we will build programs that will suit the countries where we will do our best as a humble society to alleviate poverty as much as we can.
I assume some of those countries are in the grips of incredible economic, political crises, oftentimes where there's conflict that would be very, very difficult to work in. How does the society maneuver that?
It is true. We talk about natural disasters. There are also political disasters where you have refugees fleeing the country. As you can see in the world now, there are quite a number of countries in this situation. In all those countries, we have the society present, but we are working with heavy odds because of security, of safety of our members. However, through the grace of God, we move with caution and prudence, and we have to be practical. In areas where we can't go in because of security, we do not do it. But at the same time, we help a lot of the refugees at the borders of those countries where we are. And we are very much involved in so many refugees in so many countries as you see in today's world.
Yeah. Ralph, is there any component of this that has members of local U.S. Societies going to other countries to aid in the work there?
Seldom actually going. Disasters in the U.S., though, we may send things. And our role in those, as Michael talked about, even internationally, is the immediate response. Often Red Cross, Salvation Army do a great job. But they don't build those houses again after a tornado or a hurricane for years, and so they need clothes. They'll need the new furniture. So often we're with those people in these places for several years after, assisting them. So less over. We'll help them financially, occasionally in an emergency. But there again,
Yes.
Vincentians to Vincentians, not just out to big money, and very specific proposals. I think here, and that's the beauty of this site overall, who's doing the work there are the people who live there. It's not like we send a rapid response team to any of these places. We don't have the money to do that. That's not who we are. We help empower the people who are on the ground there anyway, and they're going to be on the ground after the fact. So we try making their life better. Just like if something would happen here, we would get support and whatever, but it would need to be Madison people rolling up their sleeves and doing more.
Yeah. So as new nations then would create societies, it would be Vincentians within those countries that would organize and create the society there?
That's right. We will always use the locals in the country, but then the Council General, we have a program where we put in to train and form the members in areas of leadership, members development, and of course, very importantly, fundraising. Yeah. So it is a good humanitarian exercise for the third world countries to get themselves involved, and they appreciate it more as to the value of life. And that's where in these developing countries, and many of them, the members are youth. And there is 3 countries where we started with just youth. And eventually, they are non-Christian youth, but they begin to love the society, what we are doing, and they accepted the faith.
Dr. Thiel, thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
I'm honored that you were here on the show. Ralph, thanks very much.
Pleasure.
We're going to come back and wrap up For the Record right after this. My thanks to Dr. Theo and Ralph Middlecamp for being here this morning. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next Sunday at 10 for another For the Record.